When I think back to a lot of things I've shared in this video and in past videos, a lot of these things that pull me out of the funk or things that help reset, a lot of it is really just going back to the basics, and it's just a good reminder for me and maybe for you that those basics, they're foundational for a reason.
Welcome to Sunday Mornings with me, Gina Lee. Tune in each episode and join me for a cozy catch-up where we talk goals, growth, and finding joy in the everyday. Grab your favorite drink and let's dive in.
Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Sunday Mornings. My name is Gina and I'm excited to chat. It's been a while, and so I thought I would share a little bit of a life update as it's been some time. So let's chat. My husband and I got back from our honeymoon and we had an amazing time. And then September hit us bad. Our honeymoon was absolutely magical. We had such a great time and I'm excited to share some of the highlights. I just have a lot of things that I'm excited to share, and that'll be for another video. But for this one, I wanted to share just a little bit about what's been going on since we've been back. And it's safe to say that September was a big reality check. I feel like I haven't been hit by the life struggle bus since earlier this year when I was dealing with everything with my dad being in the hospital and him ultimately passing. And it's safe to say that September ended up being one of the hardest months of this year since my dad's passing. I'm still processing a lot of what I've been feeling from the events of September, and so I may share that or I may just keep that to myself. Essentially, there just have been a lot of health scares with some family members, with my cat, and with myself. And thankfully, most everyone besides me is essentially recovered. I realized that I ended up injuring my foot on our honeymoon. I didn't know it at the time. We were hiking up to a different viewpoint in Neuschwanstein, and my foot ended up slipping on a rock and sort of landing like this. It felt like an internal bruise, and so I just thought with time it would heal, and it was never painful. It was more just a little bit of an annoyance. And so I powered through that pain, and we ended up basically doing all of the outdoor activities that we wanted to do during my honeymoon, and it wasn't an impediment then. It wasn't until I got back and after having rested for a little bit that I realized it's not actually getting that much better, even though we've dramatically decreased the amount of physical activity, physical exercise that we were doing. I recently went to see my primary care physician and podiatrist, and long story short, it turned out that I likely fractured my foot without realizing, and it's just been attempting to heal, but because I've been on it and still attempting to exercise, attempting to go for walks and things like that, it likely hasn't fully healed yet. And so I think given everything that's been taking place in September and the fact that exercise, which is normally my go-to de-stressor, whenever I feel like I'm in my head a lot, or if I feel really upset about something, or I just want to relieve some stress, then I normally do that by going outside, by being in nature, by getting some sunlight. With my foot being injured and trying to reduce the amount of physical activity that I can do, that's been really challenging to be able to find ways to get myself out of a funk. I decided to hop on here because I'm going through all of that, and so I don't want to get too much into the personal right now, just given that I'm still processing things. But I did want to share some of the things that I've been doing to help myself get out of a funk in case you're in one and you're just trying to figure out what's one small thing that I can do today, this week, that'll make yourself just feel a little bit better. And these are some of the things that have worked for me in recent weeks. The number one biggest thing that's been really helping now has been actually listening to my body's siren calls to rest. And what I mean by that is when I wasn't sure what was causing my foot, what was preventing my foot from fully recovering, I was so concerned about making sure I don't lose momentum, still getting my walks in, still making sure I don't lose muscle, all of that I was still pushing my body to go out and get exercise, even though if I think about it in hindsight, it likely just needed some rest. The way that felt for me was I would just have a lot more mental chatter about going to the gym or doing my Pilates class or going out for a walk, which is typically rare for me, like especially once I'm in the groove of exercising more regularly, then it's pretty easy for me to want to go out and do those things. And I just found that I had a lot more resistance to actually wanting to do the activities that normally are very easy for me to do. So that was a sign that there might be something else at play. The other thing is that I was just so tired. And granted, part of it was I wasn't sleeping all that consistently. I think most of that was in response to just me still processing what's been going on in September. But I would say a big part of that is I've been needing to nap a lot more. I've been needing longer stretches of sleep. And I mentioned this in the previous video about how when I was like in a sort of peak season of grief where I was just processing a lot of emotions. Similarly, I still think I am processing a lot of emotions, but likely my body was just, my foot was trying to heal and I wasn't resting as much as it needed. And so once I stopped fighting it, especially after I got my diagnosis, I have just been prioritizing my sleep and rest a lot more. So if I feel like I need to take a nap, then I will take that nap, even though I normally don't nap. Or if like right now, I've been noticing that instead of my normal 7 hours of sleep a night, my body has been needing 8 to 9 hours of sleep. So I will try to go to bed at a time so I'm able to get that 8 to 9 hours of sleep and still be able to get up and be ready for work the next day or whatever weekend activity that I have the next day. And that's actually been really helpful. And a lot of this, when I think back to a lot of things I've shared in this video and in past videos, a lot of these like things that pull me out of the funk or like things that help reset, a lot of it is really just going back to the basics. And it's just a good reminder for me and maybe for you that those basics, they're foundational for a reason. The second thing has been around food. My appetite is not really there, so I'm not typically hungry for breakfast or for lunch. I wasn't eating until 2 or 3, and then when I would eat, I would have this huge energy crash because I'm basically starving myself unintentionally. So what I have been doing for the past few weeks was that first week I would make sure I would prioritize regular meals at breakfast so that I'm eating regularly breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then over a period of a week, that allowed my stomach to remember that, these are the times that we regularly eat. And so I will regularly eat during that allotted breakfast time, lunchtime, dinner time, etc. And that's actually been really helpful just to stabilize my energy. I just want to make sure that food isn't something that's causing my energy to crash. It's been more something that I'm able to maintain throughout the course of the day and keep that energy level throughout the day. And so then that way, as like I'm still like in this like physically healing process, my nutrition isn't making that worse and isn't hurting my body's ability to be able to heal. And I realized that when I am truly stressed, like really stressed, I don't tend to eat. Like I definitely have this like kind of interesting curve where if I'm like slightly stressed, and usually if it's like I'm procrastinating, then I will get really peckish. But when I'm like really hyper stressed, I won't eat. And so I realized that once I was like thinking and reflecting back on my weeks and noticing, oh, I wasn't actually eating regularly, and that was timed with my energy sluggishness, that I was like, oh, I really need to reset that. And so having done that in the past like recent weeks, that's been really helpful in getting me one step closer to feeling a little bit better, which isn't to say that I feel great, but it's just that I feel better than I did the day before or the week before. The hardest thing about me being in this recovery phase, healing phase, has been the fact that I can't exercise. And so I've dramatically reduced how much I'm walking. I haven't stepped foot in the gym in multiple weeks by this point. And that's been actually really challenging. But what I have been doing is just trying to find victory in the very, very small things. So if it was normally that I felt accomplished if I was walking my average 10 to 15,000 steps a day, and that's what made me feel good. Right now, I'm focusing on the fact that, oh, I walked maybe 1,000 steps more than I did the day prior. It's a win that I ended up walking inadvertently more than I had anticipated the day before. So today I'm going to intentionally not walk as much so that my foot can get some rest. And that's a win. And the other thing that I've been doing is, instead of like, even there are some moves in my Pilates class that are a little bit painful because they require, like, for example, if you're doing downward dog, then you need to put weight on the ball of your feet to be able to lift up. And that's not good for me right now because that's where my foot injury is. And so finding actually like shorter classes that focus more on your core or just like breathing techniques or elevating my leg, like doing those classes are also ways that I am moving my body, even if it's a little bit less than what I would like. And so that reframe and shift has been really helpful in making it feel. The biggest thing where I end up being in a funk is the sort of mental dialogue that I have in my head when I'm in a funk is that I'll get behind, and not behind by anybody else's measure, but my own. So I was on a pretty good regimen before our honeymoon, and especially during our honeymoon, of being active, and I wanted that to carry over with us being back. And I thought that I was on track with actually being able to up my number of workouts and things like that, and getting back into running and playing tennis again, but I can't do any of those high impact sports right now. And so instead of focusing on the fact that my foot is injured and so now I can't do those things, I'm just focusing on the fact that I'm now in a period where my body is literally being like, hey, let's just chill for a bit, and just being okay with the chill. And it turns out that maybe I'm not as okay with being in the chill as I thought I was, and now I'm being forced to. So that is also a learning unto itself. As an aside, one thing that's been really helpful is I have an Oura ring, so it's right here, and I love it. But one thing that I noticed was like, as my foot is like in this recovery phase, I think part of the reason why I had this like narrative that, oh, I'm like getting behind, or oh, I'm derailing the progress that I had been making, is because I would say, oh, you got a lot of sleep today, so I increased your baseline score based on this so that you can actually push yourself a little bit more. And then if I'm walking less, or if I'm like burning less calories throughout the course of the day because I've dramatically reduced my physical activity, then my ring will reflect that. And I didn't realize it at the time, but I think that was like a subconscious voice that's, oh, maybe you should be pushing yourself a little bit more, even though that's definitely not the case. And so one of the things that I've done is actually switch on the ring. I changed the settings so that I put it onto rest mode. And so I'm going to keep it in rest mode throughout the course of my foot recovery until it feels 95% healed and I can walk almost as much as I normally do, and I'm not inhibited in any exercise in any way. That's when I'll toggle it back on. And what the rest mode does is it basically suppresses your like activity goal. So it'll still track all of your stats in case you're curious, and I still track my sleep and things like that, but I don't want any sort of pressure, whether from myself or externally, to say, oh, you need to push your body a little bit more to hit this target, because that's not the priority right now. The priority right now is to get some rest. Another thing that I've been doing is like removing the label that the way that I'm spending my free time is unproductive. I've been going back to things that used to bring me a lot of joy in past funks. For one, I love Disney movies. It's like a huge source of comfort for me. I've been rewatching the Disney catalog. I'm excited because I have plans to go to Disneyland with some friends sometime soon. I'm hoping that my foot will be healed by then. And as a way to get into the Disney spirit, not that it takes much for me to get into the Disney spirit, but really as an excuse, I've been rewatching a lot of old Disney movies and going back from the very first, so starting with Snow White and making my way through the catalog. I won't make it through every single Disney movie that's made, but I will get through a lot of the ones that I love or I haven't watched in some amount of time. And so that's been something that I've been looking forward to in my evenings. And another thing is, when the pandemic hit, one of the ways that I was able to socialize with my friends was actually through Animal Crossing. And so I've re-picked up my Switch and I've been playing Animal Crossing and continued my quest to decorate what I call my like final island. It's been like 5 years in the making after multiple resets, but I've just been having a lot of fun reconnecting with friends who are also still playing Animal Crossing and decorating my island and talking to my villagers. Something that like I noticed that I turn to Animal Crossing when I am in moments where I'm like seeking comfort. I don't consciously do this. It's like subconsciously something will say, oh, hey, like you haven't played Animal Crossing in a while. Maybe you should play. And then when I think about times when that subconscious voice comes in, it's usually in times where I'm seeking comfort and rest and relaxation. And so I've been doing that again. And so if you're in a similar situation where you're just trying to figure out how to get yourself out of a funk, maybe you also have a similar voice that nudges you towards a particular hobby, whether that's Animal Crossing or not, that you used to do and is inviting you to pick that back up again. And for me, listening to that voice has actually been really helpful. The last thing that I've been doing is, which is actually contrary to something that I've spoken about before, is in the past, I would anchor a lot of my social activities around, I would shifted them away from food and more towards exercise. But because I can't do that anymore, what I've been doing is finding other ways to be able to hang out with my friends. Some of that does involve around food again, but some of it is like going to, like meeting up with a friend instead of going for a walk like I would normally want to do. We'll go out for coffee, or we'll go out for brunch, or we'll meet at a friend's place and we'll cook a meal together. Or I've been like, as we get into like cozy season, I've been wanting to host more. So I also hosted my first Disney movie marathon with some friends where we watched an obscene amount of TV as we were making our way through the Disney movie catalog. With these groups of friends, normally like I'll spend time with them outside, but I've been really grateful that they've been receptive to finding ways to hang out with me while I'm not really able to move as much. And I've also, like my husband and I have been going out for date night dinners or just eating meals, like eating out at restaurants together. We celebrated our anniversary dinner at San Juan, which was really exciting. And like those little like new experiences has actually been really helpful in making myself feel a little bit better like during this period of time. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this helps, especially if you're in a period of life right now where things are just tough. I'm not gonna lie. I say that these are the things that have been helping me pull myself out of my funk, but really I'm still in the thick of it. I'm still processing things. I have good days and low days, and there's a lot more low days in the mix than I would like there to be, and there quote unquote normally is. But I think one thing that's been really helpful for me is that when I feel like I'm in this place, it's really easy for me to get into my head and say, oh, is this going to be the way that it is for an extended period of time? And what I've been really clinging on to has been the fact that this is now a season of rest where my body is literally saying, you need to slow down. We are going to slow down so you can focus on healing your foot and likely whatever else is like unprocessed throughout this past month and this past year, which has been really tough. And so I definitely don't have it all figured out, but I can say that all of the things that I've mentioned that I've been doing in some capacity, not all of them on the same day, but in some capacity each day, has been helpful more often than not, and has made me feel like if I think back to this week has been a little bit better than the last week, and the last week was a little bit better than the week before that. So thank you so much for watching. I hope things are well on your end, and I'll see you next time.